Hi, I'm John Groders. Of course you can judge a book by its cover, and we do it all the time. We judge books by their covers, movies by their trailers, artists by their singles. Julie Fairchild is one of the leading PR and publicity specialists in her field. Meet her today on No Shame.
Have no shame, no, we are not afraid, no shame of the gospel of his name. It's the power of God by which we all are saved. We need not be afraid, no shame.
Hi, and welcome to the No Shame podcast, the No Shame videocast, thanks to Zoom technology, where we can reach right into people's personal automobiles and interrupt their day with interviews. And we're welcoming Julie Fairchild. She's the CEO and president of the 130 Agency in Dallas. And basically, Julie, you've been helping people get good work, seen, listened to, noticed, that kind of thing. Is that basically right?
That's it. We've had the company for 17 years now, and just started calling it the 130 Agency about 2 years ago. And that came from just being, not satisfied with 100% effort or results. And so we really, pride ourselves on saying we're going to get 130% results whenever somebody hires us to promote their project.
So I was wrong, Julie. I bet it's Psalm 130. So I looked it up. Lord, if you kept a record of sins, who could stand? So I thought there was going to be some juicy stories about that, but no, it's 130% effort, huh?
130% effort, and hopefully results too. I mean, we believe that the good content that's out there really needs to have a platform. And so we're working on in a lot of entertainment projects, but not only entertainment projects. We're also working with ministries and other groups to advance the cause of Christ in whatever the forum is.
So we, on this podcast, interview, anybody at the intersection of faith and culture, we say. So we have writers and directors and actors and authors and those kind of things. But you're in the world of various things, publicity, PR, special events. Can you kind of just describe that for us laymen, what all that means?
Sure, I'd be glad to. Publicity is really just getting the word out to the public. I mean, that's really what that means. And PR is just a short term for publicity. So what it is things that are not paid. So it's earned media and putting things in the context that people will understand and care about hearing and listening to, and so therefore they want to support those projects. So we take whatever the project is, we identify who the audience is that would be most interested in that, and what what we call the news hooks are. What are the reasons that they would be interested, and then we try to promote it that way. Special events is another area that we often do. We do red carpet events and things like that to introduce films and other things to the interested audience, whoever that might be. Mm-hmm. And sometimes that's working with the media to have them there, and sometimes it's just to encourage leaders and others who would be interested to attend.
Well, for filmmakers like me, you are an invaluable part of the process. And I want to ask you about some of those things, but I also want to start by acknowledging the obvious. We're filming this on March 26th, 2020, and these are the days of coronavirus. So you're in your car. How are you in yours? How are things in Dallas? What's your update?
Everything is great in Dallas. We are on lockdown, and so, people are in their homes and they're sort of sheltering in place. We have to get out minimally to get to, supplies and that sort of thing. But we're believing that the Lord is going to, show himself strong through this, and that it will be over soon.
And you're all alone in that car of yours right now, it seems to be, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, actually, I'm not. My husband is in here with me, so if you hear any strange noises.
Oh, really? He's monitoring the conversation, huh? He doesn't trust you. Well, hello, husband, if you can hear me. Oh, nice. Well, I guess that takes away all the juicy story opportunities we might have explored. Well, So, you talked about PR and kind of earned media. One of the projects, I interviewed Abby Johnson on this podcast last year, and we interviewed Chuck Konzelman and Corey Solomon, and we kind of followed the progress of Unplanned. So you had a part in that, right? You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, one of the things that we do is unit publicity. And so we're actually on the set when the filming is taking place. We're collecting the assets and things that will be used for promotion later. And so during that time, I was there every day, and then also invited journalists to come to the set to actually experience what was going on the set and hear the story from Abby and from the others who were involved, who were there. So that's one of the services that we provide to filmmakers, and oftentimes with independent films in particular, we're the people who are on the set. We're not union publicists, so we don't work on union sets, but we do work on a lot of independent films.
Well, you might notice I'm wearing this lovely hat today, which says Romania. I've been in Romania filming a new film, and we timed it, I guess, right. We were there all January, February, and we finished about 3/4 of our principal photography, which were the winter scenes. And then we're scheduled to return in May for the summer scenes. Doesn't look like that's probably a reality, May. So we were on the phone this morning with our partners in Romania. But so a unit publicist, like we have had staff photographers on this film. We're working on a prequel film to Tortured for Christ, which was a film I did a couple of years ago. It's a period piece. So the unit publicist, in your case, would get on a plane, fly to beautiful Romania, and hang out with us for a couple of weeks and really just have basically a really great time. Is that all you really have to worry about?
Yeah, just a great time. The unit publicist is a member of the crew, really. And so just as hard as everybody else is working, the unit publicist is working that hard too. And what we found over time is that a lot of times, particularly when you have known actors and things who they go on from your project to another project, they're not necessarily as available later on to do when you're talking about the promotional phase. So it's great to have captured things on the set that we can then use for any number of things, whether that be interview footage that we're using, whether we're putting together a featurette that may be used in promotion later on. And a lot of things like that. But also for those who we are able to use in promotion later, we have an opportunity to develop a rapport with them during the shooting. We're on the set with them. And so then it's a much easier entree to work with them later when we're in the promotional phase.
Well, I've heard of you, Julie, for years. I really, I don't think we've ever met in person. And Dick Rolfe, I know, has told me about you years ago when I was doing, but my little company here has been in business since 2001. We've both been sort of working in different angles of the same field with what sounds like a really similar mission. We say to reveal the beauty of Christ to the world through excellent media. And it sounds like you're along parallel with that, with PR, promotion, publicity, events. So I'm kind of sad and embarrassed that I haven't met you before today on this Zoom podcast, but it's okay. Nice to meet you. Your reputation's great, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. We have a wonderful little small team of people who really care about advancing the cause of Christ, and we do it in a way that I hope is palatable both in the mainstream world and in the Christian world. We try to find news hooks that are understandable, and we try to speak in language that's understandable to the mainstream world as well. And we feel like if it's relevant, it should be relevant widely. And so those are the types of projects that really resonate with our team.
So I got to tell you, I guess this is just information if someone's listening, why these two roles. I can tell you when I'm on the set as a director, you'd think I would have plenty of time to think about publicity, but I have zero time to think about that. I mean, it stretches you completely. So even though I'm happy to see we have a photographer, or I'll shoot little things every day, but my mind is not on publicity. And then you see the photography that someone comes back and he goes, oh my goodness, That's so valuable that that person was shooting all day. Look at these amazing shots because the lights are beautiful and the wardrobe and the makeup, everything's there. There's haze, and every shot looks great. And we would have totally missed it had we not had the photographer there at the time. You're the same way. You're right. The actors are not only available, a lot of times an actor's got more time on a set than anybody.
Exactly. That's
and
exactly right.
And their mind is 100% in it.
That's exactly right. So we really look at the script and the shooting schedule, the day out of days, and we say, okay, what are the best days to try to capture this information, this interview with this particular actor. We also are working with that unit photographer and the unit videographer to capture those things that are going on set, both in the scenes that are actually being shot and also in the behind the scenes sort of footage. So those are things that the unit publicist is really capturing on your behalf so that you don't have to worry about it. You can worry about just making a great film, and we'll worry about, making sure you have all the assets you need when it comes time to promote it.
Well, I'm sold. You're invited. Let's bring you to Romania when we go back, whenever we go back. The timing of this coronavirus, and, who knows at this point, we're sitting here in an odd state of reality. And yesterday I had on this podcast a specialist in epidemics and pandemics, and we kind of know we're all required right now to do, the things we're supposed to do, but none of us know what the world will look like in 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And we're hopeful and we believe that we're all doing this to stem the tide and we can get back to life kind of as we knew it. But for us, the timing was strange. So we filmed, and now I'm sort of in an editing phase anyway. So I'm the only person in the building. I'm sitting here in my own edit space, spending weeks just cutting together the scenes that we've just shot. Happy as a clam. How about you? Are you busy or are you bored?
Well, we're staying busy trying to promote information that people have. Some of our clients have information that's vital to people that is going to calm some fears. For instance, Crown Financial is one of our clients, and so we're helping them get the word out about what people should do and be concerned about financially. We are also working with Global Media Outreach. I always say that, Gospel Media Outreach. Global Media Outreach, who is amping up their outreach to 500,000 people per day because they're getting so much. It's all online, and they're getting so much feedback from people who are fearful and that sort of thing. From the entertainment side of things, it's been a tough road, as you well know, I'm sure. Many of the films that we were working on suddenly have dried up. People don't know what's going to happen with the release windows. Theaters are closed now. There's a lot of concern about that. So we're sort of on pause on some of those campaigns. And similar with our live performance venue, we represent Sight and Sound in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and in Branson, Missouri. And they've had to close their 2,000-seat theaters, and their shows are also on hold until the virus passes. So everybody's doing what's the most responsible thing for them, and we understand. And I take great comfort in knowing that the Lord is not surprised by this, and that He has a plan and a purpose for all of it. And so, we're just looking for what is it that He wants us to accomplish during this time.
Well, prognosticate with me a little bit. Where, like you said, the theaters are closed. Obviously, no one's gathering for events. The very thing that you have spent 17 years perfecting, how to bring people together in groups to experience something, now is completely topsy-turvy. Do you have any gut feeling, prophecy on how you see things changing over the coming months or years?
Well, I do think that it's shown some vulnerabilities that we all needed to be aware of. But from the entertainment side of things, I think, we're going to see more in the streaming space. The streaming companies are all really aggressively looking to these theaters, and some of the chains are associated with streaming companies as well, and so some of the studios are, and so they're able to just go day and date with a with a streaming release on something that they would have normally released in theaters. I don't know whether that's going to be something that will continue or not, but I do think that the streaming business is going to be more robust going forward. And certainly they need Christian content. They need to understand that there's a loyal audience there. And so for those of you who are content creators, I think it's probably a real win there.
Yeah, it seems like, well, the theaters are empty. Nobody's watching movies. More people are watching movies tonight than probably on any night in the last 20 years. I mean, the Netflix numbers are off the charts, right?
Right. That's exactly right. And Netflix is not one of the companies that has aggressively pursued Christians, but I think, that this will hopefully raise an antenna.
You mean aggressively pursued Christians in the way Saul was aggressively pursuing the Christians in Damascus? What do you mean by aggressively pursued?
Maybe I should say aggressively pursuing the Christian audience. They weren't doing that.
Right.
We'll see. We'll see how things shake out. I'm prayerful that the movie theater chains will do okay and that they'll be all right, and that when things do open back up, that we'll all get out and really support them to help them make up what they've lost over these months that are probably going to transpire where they're closed.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so too, on a lot of levels, a lot of jobs and just a lot of reasons. But as a filmmaker, you just can't really compete with the experience that you design the film for in the theater, with the sound, with the size of the screen, and I know I've watched a lot of other great directors' movies in the airplane or in other venues, but there's nothing like the theatrical. I hope that they survive this shutdown. I really do, and I hope that the quality of the work that goes in there is better than ever. Because I don't want to see that venue closed down due to fear or legitimate fear of infection or that kind of thing.
I think that we may see a condensation of the release windows. There may be things are sort of releasing on top of one another that have held back and really desire a theatrical opening. And then others that are lightning in a bottle that are just going to go to streaming platforms or whatever because for whatever reason they were very timely and needed to go when they were scheduled. We had a Fathom event called I Am Patrick, and Fathom, for those of you who don't know, is a what do they call it? A theatrical event.
Experience or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's usually, between 1 and 3 nights, performances and so on. And so we had one about St. Patrick. That was fantastic. It would have been great for St. Patrick's Day, but literally the day before it was supposed to open is when all the theater chains closed. And so, those kinds of things are sad, but it's, you just, as you said, as we said already, the Lord knows, and He's not surprised by any of this, and so He'll find a way to use these things.
It doesn't feel like, the Bible talks in the Old Testament about the Jubilee year, when like every 50 years they say, all of a sudden we're like just going to forgive all the debts, stop paying your mortgage. The U.S. government is passing this gajillion dollar. I wonder if this is a little bit of a Jubilee. I don't know, but it feels kind of like that.
I don't know. We'll see.
Let me talk about your career a little bit, if you wouldn't mind just memory laning with me. Who are some of the more interesting people that you have worked with in this publicity business? Can you think of anybody kind of interesting?
Well, I think all of my clients are interesting. How's that for a good publicist?
Really good.
But I will say, I had the privilege when I was working at another agency, actually, of working with Dr. Graham, with Billy Graham, and that was a real pleasure and a blessing to have a small part in that. And since then, I have worked with the Billy Graham Evangelistic Association on a number of projects, and that's been a blessing too. So that's been great. I worked with also, again, in my early career at this other agency, I worked with Luis Palau, who also is a terrific evangelist. I worked with T.D. Jakes, and again, these are relationships that have lasted across the decades, and Many of them are good friends that I still talk to on a regular basis, and Bishop Jakes is certainly one of those, who's just been terrific. And I've traveled all over the world with him, which is also really exciting. Opened my eyes to a lot of things that were going on in different countries and such. And when I started my agency, he was one of the people who called me after about a year. I wasn't doing any entertainment because I, really had a bit of a non-compete agreement that I, just was honoring personally with the former agency, and I wasn't doing anything. And he called me up and he said, "Hey, I think I have something that, might be different for you, and it's a film." And it was on his for-profit side. And so we said, okay, we'll do that. And as soon as we did that, sort of opened the floodgates from everybody else who had been calling and saying, come on, come on, come on. And we started doing more entertainment projects. And now we've worked on, I think, 57 films. We've theatrical films. There's many, many others that are that went straight to DVD or streaming or something along those lines. And then we probably had, I can't remember exactly what the statistics are, but something like $1.6 billion worth of earned media that have come for these groups and organizations who have, had a special message and didn't know how to necessarily get it out. And we had the privilege of helping them find a way to do that. I remember sometimes it's very famous people like that, and other times it's people who are completely unknown. So I remember when a couple of filmmakers from Albany, Georgia, got in touch with us and said, "Hey, we have this little film, and it was called Facing the Giants." And we tried every which way to get attention for them, and we were just running into one brick wall after another. And then the MPAA came back and said they were, rating it PG for sports violence. And we were like, what? How could you possibly call that film PG? And so that became the news hook that really lit the fire that helped them be well known. And
man, think of what they could have done if it had got in an R.
Well, it was so interesting to see these journalists who before hadn't been at all interested. Suddenly they were interested in the fact that, PG for pro-God was being silenced. And so that was a whole nother ball of wax. But we really saw the power of media in that, and the power of Christian media in particular, who really mobilized their audience to, support these guys. And the Kendricks, of course, have gone on to do many, many other wonderful things since then.
You had that happen with Unplanned, right? You had some of that kind of news and MPAA ratings as well.
That's right. And I actually wasn't working on the film campaign during that part of things, but they did get in touch with us and say, "Hey, would you guys like to do a satellite media tour to see if you can, which we said, absolutely, we'll set that up. There's all kinds of news popping. But because of the topic, many of the news organizations didn't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole. And so, again, you really see the power of the media as a result of that, and, both on the good side and the bad side.
Mm. So what kind of criteria? We're speaking with Julie Fairchild. She's the president and CEO of 130 Agency, and she has publicized and tweeted the horn for a lot of great projects, Christian projects, over the past 15, 17 years. Julie, do you ever say no to anybody? And how do you decide what projects are yes and are no? Or do you have any criteria, or how do you make those calls?
We do say no pretty regularly. And we say no because if we don't believe that we can really help someone. Sometimes a film just doesn't have a message or a hook that would be appropriate for news. And we don't want to waste anyone's money. We're a for-profit company, and we understand, that it's difficult for people to raise P&A money and so on. And so if we don't believe that we can really help them, then we'll say no to a project. We also say no if we're just completely overloaded. And so occasionally that's something that happens. It's not happening right now, I will say. But,
Load me up, load me up.
load me up. But yeah, there are times that we do. And I would say our criteria is, number one, that it doesn't violate our personal standards. And we're all Christians. And so we care about it promoting goodness and promoting Christ-centered thinking throughout whatever the film might be or the project might be. But secondly, we also want it to be something that is commercially viable. And there are times when people really love what they've done and they've, poured their heart and soul into it, and we understand that. But if we believe that it's not commercially viable, or that, we can't help them advance their cause, that, we can't in good conscience take a project, then we don't do it.
Talk to me about the money a little bit. I mean, just give us, people look at a budget, they might go on IMDb and say, oh, that film cost $6 million and it made $21 million. And they think, oh, the producers just made $15 million. That's not exactly right, is it?
No, that's not exactly right. This is in very rough terms, but, if something makes $60 million at the box office, 30 million of that stays with the theater chains. So there you go. You've got half of it right off the bat that is going there. Usually the production cost, you can, multiply it by 3 is the traditional number for a secular film. In the Christian world, we're way more scrappy. So we usually multiply it by 1 or 1.5, and that's what you get for the P&A spend for a film. And a whole bunch of that goes to advertising and promotion, the kinds of things that are, transactional, basically. So from the standpoint of, a PR campaign for a film, if it's a national film, you're probably, talking about $120,000, $130,000 for something that's going to be released nationally, in addition to any premiere or special event that you would do, that kind of thing.
Such a waste. Could have all been put into production.
And then nobody would know about it, and you'd have this wonderful film that no one ever hears about.
Oh, that's a great point. I never thought of that. So, my wife is a producer, so we've been working together for years, and it's really wonderful. We're at the age where our kids are out of the house, so working on the feature film world, we're at a good time in life for that. We can travel together, and we have completely different aptitudes and skill sets. And the basic tension between a producer and a director is kind of built in. It's supposed to be there. The director wants to spend and dream, and the producer is trying to hit a budget. So It's a good relationship because I actually know she's on my side, and she actually knows I'm not trying to be frivolous. And so we work really hard to try to not leave anything off the screen, but not be frivolous. The two of us need to be balanced by you, because the P&R side really is, I really do know better. And the adage, you can't judge a book by its cover, is absurd, isn't it?
Well, it's absurd in the PR world, simply because if somebody doesn't enjoy the cover, they're not likely to look inside and see what the book is about.
Everybody judges the book by its cover.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. We all do.
Or its trailer.
Whether that be, just the promotional elements that are put together from the press kit and the things that the journalists are looking at, to the things like the one sheet and, like you said, the trailer. Goodness gracious, that is absolutely essential. And if no one likes your trailer, they're never going to be interested in going to see the film. So those things are really essential, and I'm glad you know it too. I really
I believe we can make a great trailer out of anything. We've done trailers for other movies, and
yeah.
I would say I can make a great trailer from a really bad movie. It's just that's part of what we've learned how to do. But my striving is that the movie needs to live up to the trailer. The movie has to be as good as the trailer, and that is where my passion comes in. And but I want to give you great trailers and posters and one sheets and PRs and log lines and everything that makes an audience potentially be willing to invest their time into our project in truly believing that if they do, they will be, I love the word edified. I don't really know what it means, but I still love the word, that they will be edified having seen our film or gone to our concert or read our book. That's what I want.
Well, when you think about it, everyone has a limited amount of time. And, when they're going to invest 2 hours of their life that they'll never get back in going to see your film, it's an important responsibility for you as a filmmaker and for me as a marketer to make sure that the right people are investing their time to go and see it, and that they feel like they walk out and they're so glad that they did. And so I would just urge any filmmaker to really pay attention to the marketing side of things. While you have to be pure in creating the best product you can create and all of that, it's really important once you have a finished product to say, okay, who is this for and how are we going to reach them and so on, and let the experts, sort of take you there or at least advise you on that as you go forward.
If you're listening and you are an aspiring filmmaker or an established filmmaker, if by any chance you missed what Julie said, I just want to reiterate it. She said that you better save 100% or more of your budget for P&A, prints and advertising. And that's minimum. So, it's very, very easy to forget that when somebody donates to our film, whatever the budget is, or we get a little bit of funding, at the very best, spend half. And really, you probably want 2 times or 3 times if you really want to promote your film. And, I don't have any magic way to raise that money. But if we do great work that a company like Julie would say, yeah, this is significant, this can be mass marketed, then we will find ways to promote that film. It's possible. Tell me it's possible. Promise me it's possible.
It's possible. I can't promise you anything.
I don't mean promise, yeah.
But yeah, that's the thing about earned media, is that you can never promise anything. It's not like buying advertising. But
right.
If you engage professionals who know what they're doing, then they'll give you the best chance that there is of getting the word out.
Now, here's why I decided you're a missionary today, Julie, because, I think sometimes maybe us who work in the media feel like we're second string on the front lines. We know that there are people who are today working with hand to hand with the coronavirus patients. We know there are people in China in the underground church. And I'm sitting in an office, you're sitting in a car, but we are about proclaiming the gospel, and we're trying to do it strategically. So I stumbled upon this psalm today: give praise to the Lord, proclaim his name, make known among the nations what he has done. And I kind of thought that's kind of maybe what you do. You are making it known among the nations. That's a biblical exhortation right there from Psalm 105. Are you in a mission field?
I would think so in some cases. We really love telling true stories and using the real people behind the story. And we did that recently with a film called Breakthrough. That was just a remarkable film about a young man who drowned and was, resuscitated, brought back to life. And it was such an encouraging film, so inspirational. And to us, it was wonderful to herald those kinds of things from the rooftops and have people see that inspirational story, because it provides hope. It gives people hope. I wouldn't call myself a missionary just because I have a for-profit company where many others are being sacrificial in their in the work that they do. So I wouldn't call myself a missionary in that regard. But it is a blessing to be able to advance messages that are meaningful and inspirational to people.
You talk about Breakthrough. We had Jason Noble here in my office, and he was on this podcast before Breakthrough came out, when he was kind of touring it, and we went into the pre-screenings of that. And Jason's great. Jason, if you don't know, is the true life pastor who was involved in that story, and then he was, portrayed in the movie. And so we were fans of Breakthrough from the start and doing what we could to promote it. But what sort of drew it home to me is that it's on the airplanes. Like, I've been flying a ton this year before everything shut down. But Breakthrough is one of those Christian movies. It's right there on the list. Yep. And for some reason, I'm really proud of that. Did you put that there?
No, that's not. That's something that happens in the distribution side of things, where it actually ends up on airlines. But all the way back to Facing the Giants, we saw that as a huge opportunity because, Stephen and Alex said, "Goodness gracious, we're on." The airplanes that are going into Abu Dhabi and such. And it was the most amazing thing. So places that were close to the gospel were still receiving it through these airplane videos that were playing. So, the Lord has his way of using all of it. And I do believe that entertainment is a source for him to use with, people who wouldn't necessarily darken the door of a church, but they would watch a movie. And so there really are opportunities there every day that we can all take advantage of, and I hope we will.
So I always try to imagine who might possibly listen to a podcast or a conversation and how it, and it just strikes me that maybe you're listening to this podcast. Maybe you're not T.D. Jakes, right? You're probably not Billy Graham. You're probably not, even a story like Unplanned or Breakthrough. But, what Julie does is she points people to those stories. I used to describe myself as an amplifier because I work with a lot of great teachers and I amplify their messages, or we do films for the Creation Museum or work with Ray Van. We amplify other messages. You're pointing people to other messages. So truly what 103 or 130 agency is doing, I guess it's kind of corny, but I guess I'll say it anyway. If that's you, point people to great teaching, point people to great experiences. Come alongside Julie and push, invite, introduce, share the book that you read, the movie that you saw. There's no other way to get this kind of word out than just getting the word out. And we can spend a lot of money on billboards and TV ads and all the rest, but most of us are a lot more persuaded when a friend says, "Man, I went and saw this movie called Unplanned. You should see that." Isn't that still the best thing we can do? If the movie's strong?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That word of mouth and that implied credibility that comes from your best friend saying that to you, or you reading it in a publication that you trust and that is valid. And that's why the earned media is so important for us from our perspective, is that it is that implied credibility that goes on to any project that we're working on. For a reporter to take their time and say, okay, tell me about this and so on. It brings out an entire audience of people who are listening or viewing, and you have an opportunity to tell that story over and over again. So it's great.
Yes. I've been interviewed on the last film I did was called Torture for Christ. I was interviewed on Romanian television. They didn't know what to make, and they kept trying to push me a little bit, but I had a chance to speak in a different realm to more people in a different way. Let me ask you one final question. You're stuck like the rest of us, and you're a professional expert. What in-house recommendations do you have for what I should watch tonight when I go home and binge? You got any advice?
Yes, I do. As a matter of fact, there is a new documentary that Netflix just picked up about Bethany Hamilton, and I'm so sorry I can't tell you what the name of it is right now. I can't remember the name of it, but it is a fantastic documentary. I just saw yesterday that Netflix had it, so I would take a look at that tonight.
Great. Bethany Hamilton, Soul Surfer was the movie that came out a few years ago, and now there's a documentary on her.
That's
well,
right.
Julie, thank you for your time. Mostly thank you to your husband, unseen though he is, and apparently letting you doing all the driving.
Yeah.
But I appreciate your time. It's really beautiful to get to know you. What's his name, by the way?
His name is Rick, and he's right here. In fact, he just showed me the Bethany Hamilton documentary that I was talking about is called Unstoppable. Unstoppable. So you guys take a look at that. Yeah, and here's Rick.
Oh, you do exist. Hi, Rick. I'm John. How are you?
Hi, John.
I spent 40 minutes with your wife in the car privately, so it's good that you saw me. No, it's all good. Hey, God bless you guys and what you're doing. It's may you have peace and health down there in Dallas with your family and with your agency. And I hope the next time we meet each other, we'll remember that we already met each other, because it's great to meet you.
I think so, too. It's so nice to meet you, too. And God bless you and the work that you're doing. And I hope that your film gets finished in Romania soon.
I hope so, too. Amen. Thank you, Julie.
Bye-bye.
Have no shame, no, we are not afraid.
No Shame is a weekly podcast where John Groders discusses life at the intersection of faith and culture with all kinds of interesting and inspiring guests. Subscribe to the podcast today by going to johngroders.com, select the podcast tab, and hit subscribe. Listen whenever you have time, but don't miss any of these life-giving conversations.